Want to just get right into the latest update concerning Cenk Uygur 2024?
Yes, I saw this last night. I'll go ahead and let you intro this. I genuinely thought that he was just going to let this go, but no, he's doubling down.
Yeah, dude, I kind of thought that after New Hampshire, he would also wrap things up. And he was even teasing like an announcement relating to the future of his campaign on the Young Turks. So I was almost sure that that's what it would be, right? Kind of wrapping things up, like you said. However, it looks like he has a new strategy, which is justification for him to stay in the race a little bit longer. Let's take a look at this hilarious clip. Delusions of grandeur, as the emo dragon says on Twitter. So let's take a look. He's going to explain why he's staying in the 2024 presidential race. And we're going to find out. I'm going to, ask Zach's opinion on if he thinks this is a reasonable ambition. Is this something Cenk can actually pull off? Or is this, in fact, a delusion of grandeur, like, honestly, his entire campaign has basically amounted to?
Now, I'm going to try to do something audacious as I always do, which is to try to win Vermont.
Okay.
Like, I'm not unrealistic. Texas is a giant state. In 5 weeks, we are not going to be able to get our message out effectively enough, especially with mainstream media.
He's pulling at 3% in Texas.
That's crazy.
What was that?
He's pulling at 3% in Texas.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Vermont is smaller than a congressional district. It's the home of progressives. Does Vermont want to?
But is it the home of mainstream progressives? That's what I want to know. I guess that's what we're going to find out.
They have a Republican governor.
Yeah, I think they do, weirdly.
So, good luck, Cenk.
Yeah, for some reason, a lot of those like Northeast states, even though they're really blue, they like electing like moderate Republicans as their governors.
There's also the don't tread on me streak that goes through a lot of the more rural northeastern kind of counties.
To send a message, end the war, end the occupation. Now, if I won, no one would dispute that would be stunning, and the message will have been delivered, right? And so at that point, Biden's got to be thinking, well, how much longer do I want to go with the war if I just heard this resounding message, stop the war, stop the occupation? So that's point one.
And, to be fair, we have given Cenk a lot of credit over the last few months for doing a great job in debate, specifically as it relates to Palestine. Clearly, the man is very capable of articulating the Palestinian side of the discussion, and he's done a really good job in that regard. But I'm not really sure what the hell the point of this, presidential campaign is at this point. Because if you remember when he first jumped into the race, he was saying if I can get to, 15, 20% in the polls against Biden, that's going to cause a real freak out, and it's going to cause a frenzy. A bunch of other, people are going to enter the race. People like Gavin Newsom, people like the governor of Kentucky, they're going to step up to the plate because when they see that I can get 20%, what does that mean for the rest of them? Now the bar has been lowered to, Texas, all the actual states. Vermont, however, it's only the size of one congressional district, so maybe we can pull off Vermont, and then Biden, he won't stop being the nominee. It's not going to trigger an actual primary, but it will send a message. It'll definitely send a message to him to stop the war. So that's what this campaign has now become, which is pretty funny. It's more of a stunt than ever, and obviously he has no chance of winning Vermont.
No, he's not going to win Vermont. It's an embarrassment. It's a humiliation. Well, unfortunately, Joe Biden's going to clobber everyone in Vermont and pretty much in every state from here on forward. I think the only chance that he had to lose a single state was going to be the write-in effort in New Hampshire. And once that didn't happen, it was all smooth sailing. So yeah, all this effort, all this chauvinism from Cenk, it's kind of a bummer, right? We were talking about it, we were trying to give him his flowers because you're right. He was making a fantastic case for a ceasefire, and we were willing to uplift just about any good faith voice that was calling for a ceasefire on this podcast, of course, as much as we could, or be like, yeah, this is the right case. Go on, Pierce Morgan. Be forceful. Tell that Benjamin guy that he can go himself because he sounds like a foreign agent, like a propagandist. You know what I mean? All of that was great. But this kind of delusional textbook narcissistic personality disorder, it's where it all gets lost for me, right? It's like, what are you talking about? You think Bernie Sanders won multiple primary states, Cenk. He won multiple primary states in 2020. Okay, the first three, if you don't count the fuckery in Iowa, which I don't. What did Joe Biden decide to listen to Bernie Sanders on? Nothing. So you think winning one-off state that has no power in the actual scheme of anything? We're not talking about winning Nevada. We're not talking about taking home South Carolina and really punching them in the mouth. No, we're talking about Vermont, right? You're just hoping that you threw out a state that people would forget about. They know where it is because of Bernie Sanders, but they don't know anything else about it. You're like, it's on the other side of the country. You know what I mean? Like, how much time is Cenk going to go and spend there with the people of Vermont? Why would the people of Vermont vote for him in the Democratic primary if he's not going to go there? Why should we trust this guy at all? Again, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, he's still up here. He's literally on the news network he owns, making the case for why he should be president because none of the other news networks want to have him. And he didn't resign. And he's still the CEO, and he still makes all the business decision, and he's still Anna's boss, and he could still fire that lady that he had doing PR for him because it didn't work. You know what I mean? He's out here doing a vanity run after he just shut down his last, original reporting outlet. If this is TYT is going to take over the world, it's progressive media. It's like, no, now I'm going to single-handedly solve the crisis in the Middle East by winning Vermont in the Democratic primary. It's like, you can't make this shit up. It is literally, Gavin, I swear to God, it is literally at the point where it's like Tim Pool level analysis, but just from a left-wing perspective.
Mm-hmm. There's a second point too, but that alone would be worth it. There's actually two more points as to why I'm continuing. But again, if people say, hey, your chances are totally unrealistic now, so I don't want to give my hard-earned money, $25, $5, whatever it is, I totally get it, guys. I'm the only candidate that'll ever say that, right? But if you want to help send that message and you want to take advantage of this unique opportunity where one of us is on the ballot in 7 different states and we could use that as an opportunity to send a message, that would be amazing.
One of us, one of us, one of us. Dude, this guy's crazy. What a kook. Also, did you see this tweet, Gavin? Where you brought it up earlier, how he mentioned, I'll just get, I'll rise in the polls so steadily that they won't have a choice, but they'll have to put somebody else in. They'll be so afraid. And we mocked him on our show. It's like, it's so easy, blah, 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 to just do that, right? You're forgetting that Marianne's been desperately trying to do that for months and months, and you're way behind. So Glenn calls him out. And Glenn's like, Glenn, much like us, never misses an opportunity to, point and laugh as Cenk humiliates himself publicly. When Cenk Uygur announced his bid for presidency, we all recall where we were when it happened. He said he'd quickly and easily rise to 20% of the polls, which would show serious Dems they must enter the race. I don't pay much attention to the polls. Has this happened yet? And as much as Cenk wants to maul and deny this is pretty much how he presented himself to the public. I think Glenn was completely fair and accurate.
Oh, yeah, that was his whole case. That was Cenk's whole case.
Exactly. And he says, Glenn, that's not true at all. I said if I got to 20%, others would enter. Not that it would be easy to get there, or not that I would easily get there. That is very much not how he was presenting himself. It was very casual, very this is just what we're going to do. It shouldn't be me, but somebody's got to do it, grumble, grumble. So what did I get to? Quinnipiac has the only one that put me in a poll. I got 2%, which was higher than 2 GOP governors at the time, the equivalent of a 1.6 million Dem voters. But is that a great number? Of course not. But you also can't go up in the polls if they don't put you in them. See, this is the other fallacy that's pointed out by Post Left Watch. Post Left Watch doesn't even like us, but we've been really milling their Twitter feed recently because they do a good job of capturing the beef and saving it for later.
They're the best tattletale account.
Oh, they definitely are. Sometimes it'll be about us too. They'll be like, "Can you believe the Vanguard said this?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, we're big time now. People talking about us." MSNBC or mainstream media has blocked me. Excuse me. I've always said it was desperation play because our 2 options suck so much. Even you acknowledge it was an effort to get others in. Yes, that's because that was your whole strategy that now you're denying. If you think outsiders shouldn't try or they should be attacked for trying, no problem. But I'm an actual populist who can't stand any of the crooks in government. Bro, it's so funny how he always turns himself back into the victim as he's simultaneously running for president. It's supposed to be like the embodiment of a leader. What a dunce.
Yep. It's also super ironic that he is still pretending that, I'm an actual populist. I can't stand these crooks in the government. Meanwhile, as you guys probably remember, Cenk went back on his own principled stand against big money in politics to beg for billionaire money when his stupid presidential campaign actually started. I forget if it was on Breaking Points or some show like that. And they asked him point blank, will you accept big PAC money? Will you accept billionaire money? And Cenk was basically like, yeah, I definitely will. Even though the whole thesis of TYT for the past 5 or 6 or 7 years has been to discuss the poisonous effect of big money in politics. I mean, Cenk literally started Wolfpack to get money out of politics, only to then, beg for it when he runs for president. So clearly he's not actually a populist, and clearly he's not very fed up with the crooks in government, because despite all of his posturing and rhetoric, which again sometimes is on point, especially when it relates to Palestine, he was more than willing to run his campaign in the same way that he criticizes other people for running their campaign. And again, it's like, for what? What was exactly the goal here? Because we told you from the very beginning that he wasn't going to get to 20% or even 10% or even 5%. And we're telling you right now, he's not going to win Vermont. So I don't really know what the point of this is, because like I said, he compromised his values in the process. He embarrassed himself and, put a stain on his reputation.